The funeral hall fell silent when she entered. 300 mourners dressed in black turned toward the doors. White chrysanthemums lined every wall. Incense smoke curled toward the vaulted ceiling. At the center of it all, an ornate black casket held the body of Kwon Moo-hyuk, the most feared man Seoul had ever known. She walked alone. Pregnant. Uninvited. Her black dress stretched over 7 months of secret. Her hand rested against her swollen belly as she moved down the aisle. Whispers erupted like wildfire. No one recognized her. No one understood why this African woman dared enter sacred ground. She stopped at the casket. Looked down at his face. A single tear fell. Then his eyes opened. Dark gray. Cold as winter steel. They locked directly onto hers. Please like, share and subscribe. Also, comment where you're watching from so I know how far across the world my story has gone. The scream came from somewhere behind Adi's Nwachukwu, but she couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what her eyes were showing her. Dead men don't open their eyes. Dead men don't sit up in their caskets. Dead men don't look at you like they're seeing a ghost, when they're supposed to be the ghost. Kwon Moo-hyuk rose from the silk-lined coffin with the fluid grace of a predator waking from false sleep. His white funeral hanbok fell open at the chest, revealing the massive phoenix tattoo that spread across his pale skin. Black and gray ink depicted flames and resurrection. Smoke and ash curled around the edges of the design, disappearing beneath fabric. She had traced that tattoo once. In a different life. When she thought he was just a wounded man who needed healing. Chaos erupted around them. Bodyguards rushed forward. Mourners scrambled backward. Someone was shouting orders in rapid Korean. But Moo-hyuk's eyes never left her face. They dropped to her belly. Widened almost imperceptibly. Then his expression shuttered completely. Get her out, he said. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Oh, quiet. The kind of voice that never needed to rise because everyone leaned in to hear it. Hands grabbed Adi's arms. Black-suited men materialized on either side of her. She was being pulled backward, away from the casket, away from the impossible truth standing before her. No. The word tore from her throat. No, you don't get to, you were dead. Moo-hyuk stepped over the edge of the casket. His bare feet touched the marble floor. The crowd parted like water around a stone. He walked toward her with that same predatory stillness she remembered from the first night they met. The night she saved his life. The night everything changed. Take her to the East Wing, he said to his men. No one touches her. No one speaks to her. I'll deal with this myself. Deal with this. As if she were a problem to be solved. As if the child inside her wasn't his. Adi stopped struggling. Let them guide her through a side door. Let them lead her down a corridor lined with expensive art and armed guards. Her mind was spinning too fast to form coherent thoughts. 3 months. She had worked as his private nurse for 3 months. She had fallen in love with him somewhere between changing his bandages and learning the truth about who he really was. And then he'd pushed her away. Told her to leave Seoul. Told her to forget she ever knew him. 1 week later, news of his death spread across every screen in the city. Kwon Moo-hyuk, CEO of Kwon Industries, dead at 38. Apparent heart failure. Private funeral services for family and associates only. She had grieved alone. Discovered the pregnancy alone. Spent 7 months building a future for a child who would never know his father. And now the father was alive. Walking. Breathing. Looking at her belly like it held a bomb. The East Wing was a private residence hidden within the funeral complex. Adi's was placed in a sitting room with silk wallpaper and antique furniture. The guards stationed themselves outside the door. No one spoke to her. She sat on a cream-colored sofa and placed both hands on her stomach. It's okay, she whispered to the baby. Whatever happens, I'll protect you. I promise. The door opened 45 minutes later. Moo-hyuk entered alone. He had changed from the funeral hanbok into a tailored black suit. His jet-black hair was swept back from his forehead, still damp from a shower. The thin scar through his left eyebrow caught the lamplight. He looked exactly like the man she remembered. Cold. Controlled. Impossibly beautiful in that sharp, dangerous way. The phoenix tattoo was hidden now. But she knew what lay beneath the crisp white shirt. Knew the serpent coiled around his right forearm. The lotus blooming on his left. The tiny crown behind his right ear that only showed when he turned his head. She knew all of him. And apparently she knew nothing. You're supposed to be dead, she said. Moo-hyuk closed the door behind him. Walked to a chair across from her but didn't sit. His dark gray eyes moved over her face. Her body. The visible evidence of what they'd created together. How far along? He asked. 7 months. A muscle tightened in his jaw. He did the math silently. She watched him arrive at the only possible conclusion. You didn't tell me. Adiz laughed. The sound was sharp and broken. Tell you? You were dead, Moo-hyuk. I watched your funeral announcement on the news. I grieved for weeks. Her voice cracked. I almost didn't survive it. You should have contacted my organization. Your organization told me you were dead. Your organization cremated an empty casket in front of 300 people. She stood up despite her body's protests. What was I supposed to do? Call your ghost. He moved so fast she didn't see it coming. One moment he was across the room. The next he was standing directly in front of her. Close enough that she could smell his cologne. Close enough that she could see the faint shadows under his eyes. He looked tired. Exhausted. Wanted. Good. I had to disappear, he said quietly. There were traitors in my organization. People who wanted me dead. The only way to expose them was to make them believe they'd succeeded. And me? Adiz's voice trembled despite her best efforts. Was I part of that plan? Push me away. Send me home. Let me think you died without knowing I was carrying your child? His expression flickered. Something that might have been guilt passed through those gray eyes before the mask slid back into place. I sent you away to protect you. You sent me away because you were afraid. The words hung between them. Moo-hyuk's hands clenched at his sides. She remembered those hands. The Korean characters tattooed across his knuckles. On the right. On the left. Death and rebirth. He had always been obsessed with resurrection. She just didn't know he meant it literally. I wasn't afraid, he said. You were terrified. Adiz stepped closer, refusing to let him retreat. You felt something for me. Something real. And it scared you more than any bullet ever could. Adiz. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't say my name like you have any right to it. You abandoned me. Let me believe you were gone forever. And now you want to explain? I need to explain. There are things you don't understand. Then make me understand. He was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stood with his back to her. The Seoul skyline glittered beyond the glass. Somewhere out there people were living normal lives. Falling in love. Having children. Building futures without the shadow of death hanging over them. My organization controls 6 territories across Seoul, he said finally. 9 families answer to me. That kind of power attracts enemies. Ambitious men who believe they could lead better. Cruel men who want what I've built. Adiz remained silent. She had known who he was since the second week of treating his injuries. You didn't heal that many bullet wounds and knife scars without understanding what kind of man you were touching. 3 months ago I discovered evidence of a coup. Someone inside my inner circle was feeding information to my rivals. Someone close enough to know my routines. My weaknesses. He paused. Someone who knew about you. Her blood chilled. What? That's why I sent you away, Adiz? Not because I was afraid of how I felt. Because I was terrified of what they would do to you if they realized how much you mattered. She sank back onto the sofa. Her legs refused to support her anymore. You could have told me. You could have explained. I couldn't risk it. The only way my plan would work was if everyone believed I was truly dead. Including you. He turned from the window. His face was carved from stone but his eyes burned. Your grief had to be real. Your shock had to be genuine. If they suspected for one moment that you knew the truth, they would have come for me. They would have destroyed you. Adiz wrapped her arms around her belly. The baby kicked softly, responding to her elevated heartbeat. She tried to process what he was telling her. The scope of the deception. The calculation behind every choice. He had let her suffer. Let her grieve. Let her raise their child alone. At least that had been the plan, because keeping her in the dark kept her alive. It was monstrous. And terrifying. And exactly the kind of twisted logic that made Kwon Moo-hyuk who he was. The traitor, she said quietly. Did you find them? Not yet. His expression darkened. The funeral was supposed to be the final test. I was going to watch who showed genuine grief and who showed relief. Let my lieutenants identify the cracks in loyalty. Then rise from the dead and eliminate the threat. But I showed up instead. Yes. And ruined everything. No. He crossed the room. Knelt in front of her until they were eye to eye. You showed up pregnant with my child. In front of 300 witnesses. Including every enemy I have. The weight of his words settled over her like a shroud. She had walked into a carefully orchestrated trap and triggered something far worse. Now every person at that funeral knew that Kwon Moo-hyuk had a weakness. A pregnant woman. An heir. The exact leverage his enemies needed. What happens now? She whispered. Now I protect you. His hand lifted toward her belly, hesitated, fell back to his side. Both of you. I don't need your protection. I've survived 7 months without you. You've survived 7 months because no one knew you existed. His voice hardened. That changed the moment you walked down that aisle. By tonight, every rival family in Seoul will know about you. By tomorrow they'll know where you live, who your family is. Every vulnerability I spent months hiding will be exposed. Fear clawed at her chest. My aunt, Auntie Chidinma, she lives in 81. If they find out. My men are already moving her to a secure location. You can't just. I can. And I will. Moo-hyuk stood. His full height towered over her. 6'3" of lean predator wrapped in Armani. You are carrying my child, Adis. The heir to everything I've built. There is nothing I won't do to ensure you both survive. She wanted to argue. Wanted to rage against his high-handed decisions and the way he'd shattered her world twice in one day. But the baby kicked again, harder this time, and she realized that her pride meant nothing if her child was in danger. What do I have to do? She asked. Stay here. Within my compound. Don't leave without my guards. Don't contact anyone outside these walls. For how long? Until I find the traitor and eliminate the threat. That could take weeks. Months. I'm 7 months pregnant, Moo-hyuk. I have doctor's appointments. Prenatal vitamins. Plans for. All of it will be handled. I'll bring doctors here. Anything you need. What I need is my life back. Your old life is gone. There was no cruelty in his voice. Just cold truth. The moment you walked into that funeral, Adis, you walked into my world. There's no leaving now. She stared at him. The father of her child. The man she'd loved. The monster she'd thought was dead. I hate you, she said quietly. Something flickered in his gray eyes. Acceptance? It was gone too fast to identify. I know, he replied. But I'll keep you alive anyway. He turned and walked toward the door. His hand was on the handle when her voice stopped him. Moo-hyuk. He didn't turn around. Do you even care? About the baby, I mean. Or is this just about protecting your heir? Your legacy? The silence stretched between them. She watched his shoulders tighten beneath the black fabric of his suit. Watched his head bow slightly. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. I thought I was going to die for real eventually. That my enemies would succeed where they'd failed before. I accepted it. Made peace with it. He paused. And then you walked into my funeral carrying the only thing I never let myself want. What's that? A future. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Adis sat alone in the silk-wallpapered room and let herself cry. The next 3 days passed in a haze of luxury imprisonment. Adis was given an entire suite within the compound. Bedroom, sitting room, private bathroom with a soaking tub large enough to swim in. Her clothes appeared in the closet, exactly her size, exactly her style, without anyone asking her preferences. Moo-hyuk's reach was terrifying. Meals were brought by silent servants. A doctor visited twice to check on the pregnancy. Everything she could possibly need materialized before she could ask for it. Everything except freedom. On the second day, her Auntie Chidinma was brought to visit. The older woman swept into the suite wearing traditional Igbo attire, her gray-streaked hair wrapped in an elaborate geli. Her warm eyes went wide at the opulence surrounding them. Adis Nwachukwu. Auntie Chidinma's voice held generations of maternal authority. You have some explaining to do. They talked for hours. Adis told her everything. The job as a private nurse. The patient who turned out to be a mafia boss. The feelings that developed despite every warning sign. The pregnancy. The grief. The resurrection. Auntie Chidinma listened with remarkable calm. So the father of your child is alive, she said finally. A dangerous man. A man who lies as easily as breathing. Yes. And he claims he wants to protect you and the baby. Yes. Do you believe him? Adis hesitated. Her hand found her belly instinctively. I believe he'll protect the baby. That much I'm sure of. But not you. I don't know what I am to him. A complication. An inconvenience. Maybe a weakness he needs to shield. She shook her head. He's impossible to read, Auntie. One moment he looks at me like I'm the only thing in the world that matters. The next he's giving orders like I'm just another subordinate. Auntie Chidinma was silent for a long moment. Then she reached across the sofa and took Adis' hands in her own. Your mother, my sister, she fell in love with a difficult man too. Your father had enemies. Secrets. A world that was dangerous for a woman like her. The older woman's eyes softened with memory. But she chose him anyway. Because love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for safety. And look how that ended. It ended with you. Auntie Chidinma squeezed her hands. Beautiful, brilliant, stubborn you. That's not tragedy, child. That's legacy. Adiz didn't know how to respond. Her mother had died when she was 12. Her father followed 2 years later, killed by the same enemies her mother had always feared. She had been raised by this woman in front of her, who had brought her to Seoul for a fresh start and watched her walk straight into another dangerous man's orbit. Maybe it was genetic. Maybe Nwachuku women were simply drawn to fire. What do I do now? She asked. You survive. Auntie Chidinma's voice hardened with practical wisdom. You protect that baby. And you decide whether this man is worth forgiving, not for his sake but for yours. Carrying anger for the rest of your life is a heavy burden, child. Make sure it's worth the wait. On the 4th night, Adiz couldn't sleep. The baby was restless, pressing against her ribs in ways that made breathing difficult. She wandered through her suite, then out into the hallway. The guard stationed at her door glanced up but didn't stop her. Apparently she was allowed to move within the compound, just not beyond it. She found herself in a garden courtyard at the center of the estate. Traditional Korean architecture surrounded her. Stone lanterns glowed softly in the darkness. A koi pond reflected the half-moon overhead. She wasn't alone. Muhyuk sat on a bench at the edge of the water. He had removed his suit jacket and rolled his sleeves to the elbow. The serpent and lotus tattoos on his forearms were visible in the moonlight. He held a glass of something amber, untouched. He didn't look up when she approached. Can't sleep? He asked. Baby won't settle. She should have walked away. Gone back to her room. But something about the moonlight and the quiet and the exhaustion in his posture made her stay. She lowered herself onto the opposite end of the bench, leaving space between them. For a while neither spoke. The koi moved beneath the water's surface, flashes of gold and white in the darkness. I used to come here with my mother, Muhyuk said finally. When I was young. Before I became what I am. What happened to her? She died. Killed by my father's enemies. He took a slow sip of his drink. I was 12. Old enough to understand. Too young to stop it. Adiz's chest tightened. I was 12 when I lost my mother too. He looked at her then. Something shifted in his gray eyes. Recognition maybe? A shared wound that couldn't be explained, only felt. She was Nigerian, Adiz continued. From a village near Enugu. She came to Korea for work and met my father. He was complicated. Like you. Powerful in ways I didn't understand until much later. What happened? His enemies found us. Killed them both eventually. I was sent to live with Auntie Chidinma. Grew up thinking I wanted nothing to do with dangerous men or complicated lives. She laughed bitterly. And then I took a job as a private nurse without asking enough questions. You saved my life. I was doing my job. You did more than your job. His voice dropped. You talked to me. Not as a mafia boss or a patient. As a man. Do you know how long it had been since someone treated me like a human being? Adiz remembered those late nights. Changing his bandages while he told her about his favorite books. Adjusting his fore while he asked about her childhood in Nigeria. The way he'd looked at her when she laughed, like her joy was something precious and unexpected. She remembered the night he'd kissed her for the first time. She remembered thinking she was falling for a wounded businessman. She remembered learning the truth and staying anyway. I knew who you were by the end, she admitted. Not everything. But enough. And I stayed because. She trailed off. Because you made me feel seen. For the first time since my parents died, someone looked at me like I mattered. Not what I could do or how I could help. Just, me. Muhyuk set his glass down. Turned to face her fully. The moonlight caught the scar through his eyebrow, the sharp planes of his face. I wasn't pretending, he said quietly. With you I was never pretending. Then why did you send me away? Because I knew what was coming. The war with the traitors. The fake death. The danger. His jaw tightened. And I knew that if anything happened to you because of me, I would burn this city to the ground. That kind of weakness. My enemies would exploit it. Destroy you to destroy me. So you destroyed me first. The words hit him like a physical blow. She watched him absorb them, watched the mask crack just enough to reveal the devastation beneath. Yes, he whispered. I thought if you hated me, if you were far away and grieving and believed I was dead, you would be safe. You would move on. Build a life I could never give you. I was building a life. I was preparing to raise your child alone. I was doing everything right. Her voice shook. And then you rose from the dead and made everything impossible again. He reached toward her. His hand hovered in the space between them, not touching, just offering. She could see the Korean characters on his knuckles. Death and rebirth. I can't undo what I did, he said. I can't give you back those months of grief. But I can swear to you, Adiz Nwachukwu, that I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never grieve alone again. She looked at his hand. At the tattoos that told stories of violence and survival. At the scars she had once traced with gentle fingers. She didn't take it. But she didn't pull away either. Words are easy, she said. I need to see what you do when it counts. Fair. They sat in silence as the moon moved across the sky. The attack came on the 5th day. Adiz was in the garden again watching the koi with Auntie Chidinma, when the first explosion shook the compound. Smoke billowed from the eastern wall. Alarms screamed through the estate. Guards materialized everywhere, shouting in Korean. Auntie Chidinma grabbed Adiz's arm and pulled her toward the main building. They didn't make it. A black van crashed through the garden gate, scattering debris. Armed men poured out, faces covered, weapons raised. Adiz screamed as one of them grabbed her, wrenching her away from her aunt. Get the pregnant one, someone shouted. Leave the old woman. Adiz fought. Plot. But her pregnant body was awkward and heavy and no match for trained soldiers. They dragged her toward the van as Auntie Chidinma screamed her name. Then the screaming stopped. Not because her aunt went silent. Because Kwon Moo-hyuk arrived. He came from the smoke like a ghost rising from flame. His suit jacket was gone, his white shirt splattered with someone else's blood. The phoenix tattoo was visible through the torn fabric. His gray eyes were no longer cold. They were volcanic. He moved through the attackers like death itself had taken human form. One man dropped with a broken neck. Another folded around Moo-hyuk's fist before crumpling. A third raised a gun only to have it turned on him and fired before he could blink. The man holding Adiz hesitated. That hesitation cost him his life. Moo-hyuk's hand closed around the attacker's throat and squeezed until the man went limp. Then he caught Adiz before she could fall, pulling her against his chest with desperate strength. Are you hurt? His voice was ragged. Terrified. The baby? We're okay. She was shaking uncontrollably. We're okay, Auntie Chidinma? She's safe. My men have her. He cupped her face in his blood-stained hands. I need you to listen to me. This attack wasn't random. Someone told them exactly where you would be. Exactly when the guards would change shifts. The traitor. Yes. And now they know you matter to me. Now they'll stop at nothing to use you against me. More explosions echoed across the compound. Gunfire crackled in the distance. Moo-hyuk's lieutenant, the sharp-faced man Adiz had seen at the funeral, appeared at his side. Sir, we need to move. The east wall is completely breached. At least 30 hostiles. Moo-hyuk nodded, never taking his eyes off Adiz. Take her to the secondary location. The one only you and I know about. Kill anyone who tries to follow. And you, sir? I'm going to find out who betrayed us. His expression went utterly cold. And I'm going to make them regret it. He started to pull away but Adiz grabbed his wrist. Moo-hyuk. He paused. Come back alive this time. Her voice cracked. If you die for real, I will never forgive you. Something softened in his gray eyes. Something almost like hope. I'll come back, he promised. For both of you. Then he disappeared into the smoke and chaos, leaving her in the hands of his most trusted man. The secondary location was a penthouse apartment in Gangnam, accessed through an underground tunnel that seemed to stretch for miles. By the time they arrived, Adiz's body was screaming with exhaustion. Auntie Chidinma was waiting inside, shaken but unharmed. They held each other and cried. Hours passed. No word from Moo-hyuk. No news about the attack. The lieutenant, Seo Jae-won, she learned, stationed guards at every entrance but refused to tell her anything. Boss's orders, he said flatly. You wait here until he comes. So she waited. And waited. And waited. The sun rose. The baby kicked. Auntie Chidinma prayed softly in Igbo, asking ancestors for protection. And still no word. By noon, Adiz was pacing the penthouse like a caged animal. Every worst-case scenario played through her mind. He was dead. Really dead this time. She would raise this child alone after all. She would never get the chance to. The elevator doors opened. Moo-hyuk stepped out. He was covered in blood, most of it not his own based on how he was moving. His shirt was in tatters. The full phoenix tattoo blazed across his bare chest. His knuckles were split and raw. But he was alive. His eyes found hers immediately. "I found the traitor," he said. "Who?" His jaw tightened. "Baek Sungjin. My second in command. My father's oldest friend. He's been feeding information to the Jung family for 2 years." Adiz remembered that name. Baek Sungjin had been mentioned during her time as Moo-hyuk's nurse. He had called once and Moo-hyuk's voice had gone flat in a way that seemed wrong even then. Where is he now? Being questioned. Moo-hyuk's expression was terrifying. "He won't live to see tomorrow." "And the others?" "The attackers. Dead or captured. The Jung family is in retreat. They know what's coming." He moved toward her slowly, like he was afraid she might disappear. "It's over, Adiz. The immediate threat is over." Relief flooded through her so fast she almost collapsed. She sank onto the nearest sofa, hands pressed to her belly. The baby is safe." "Yes." He knelt in front of her, exactly as he had in the compound days ago. But this time his hand didn't hover. This time he placed it gently, so gently, against the curve of her stomach. The baby kicked. Moo-hyuk's breath caught. His gray eyes went wide with something she had never seen in him before. Wonder. "That's." His voice was barely audible. "That's our child." "Yes." "I felt." He swallowed hard. "I felt the baby move. She's been active lately. Keeps me up at night." "She." His head snapped up. "It's a girl?" Adiz almost smiled at the shock on his face. "The doctor thinks so. Based on the last ultrasound." Kwon Moo-hyuk, the most feared mafia boss in Seoul, looked like someone had just handed him the entire universe. "A daughter?" he whispered. "I'm going to have a daughter." Adiz watched the transformation happen in real time. The cold calculation melting away. The walls crumbling. The mask finally shattering beyond repair. He looked up at her with tears in his eyes. The ghost of Gangnam was crying. "I will protect her," he said hoarsely. "I will protect both of you with everything I have. Everything I am. I swear it on my blood and my name and every ancestor who came before me. Moo-hyuk. And I will never leave you again." His voice cracked. "Never. I don't care what happens, what wars I have to fight, what enemies I have to destroy. You are mine, Adiz Nwachukwu. You and this baby are mine. And I will burn the whole world down before I let anyone take you from me." She should have resisted. Should have remembered all the reasons she couldn't trust him. The lies. The abandonment. The grief he'd put her through. But looking at his face, this powerful, dangerous, terrifying man on his knees before her, weeping over the child they'd created, she felt something shift inside her heart. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe, the beginning of something. "Show me," she said quietly. "Don't just say the words. Show me what I mean to you." "How?" "Choose me. Over your empire. Over your pride. Over everything you thought mattered." She held his gaze steadily. "That's how you prove it." The determination that blazed in his gray eyes was absolute. "Done," he said. And Adiz realized, with a mixture of terror and hope, that she actually believed him. What neither of them knew was that Baek Sungjin had already sent one final message before his capture. A message to the Jung family patriarch. A message containing 4 words that would change everything. "The woman is pregnant. The child is his heir. Kill them both." The message reached Jung Daeho 3 hours before dawn. He sat in his private study, surrounded by antique weapons and the portraits of ancestors who had built their empire on blood. The patriarch of the Jung family was 72 years old, silver-haired and patient as a spider. He had waited 15 years for Kwon Moo-hyuk to show weakness. Now weakness had walked into a funeral with a swollen belly. "Find the woman," he said to the shadows behind him. "Find her before the child is born. Kwon's bloodline ends with him." The shadows moved. And Seoul's underworld shifted with them. Adiz woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment she forgot where she was. Forgot the attack. Forgot the blood and chaos and terror. Then her hand found her belly, felt the reassuring kick of her daughter, and everything came rushing back. She was in the Gangnam penthouse. She was safe. For now. The bedroom door opened silently. Moo-hyuk entered carrying a tray, actual breakfast on an actual tray, like some kind of domestic scene from a drama she would never have imagined him in. "You should be resting," she said. "I don't rest." He set the tray on the bedside table. Rice porridge. Fresh fruit. A pot of tea that smelled like ginger and honey. "The doctor says you need to eat regularly. Something about blood sugar and the baby's development." You spoke to my doctor? I hired a new one. The best obstetrician in Seoul. She'll be here this afternoon for a full examination. He paused. If that's acceptable to you. Adiz studied his face. Dark circles under his eyes. Tension in his jaw. He hadn't slept at all. Did you find out anything else? She asked. About Baek Sungjin? About who else might be involved. Sungjin talked before he died. Moo-hyuk's voice went flat in that way she remembered, the way that meant violence had happened and more was coming. The Young family has been planning this for years. My fake death accelerated their timeline, but they were always going to move against me eventually. And now they know about me. Yes. And the baby. Yes. Adiz pushed herself upright against the pillows. Her back ached constantly now. The baby was getting heavier every day. What's the plan? We can't stay hidden in this penthouse forever. I'm due in 2 months. Moo-hyuk moved to the window. Stood with his back to her, silhouetted against the Seoul skyline. The morning light caught the edge of his profile, sharp and beautiful and deadly. There are 3 options, he said. The first is to send you away. Out of Korea entirely. Somewhere the Young family can't reach. No. Adiz. I said no. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. I'm not running. I'm not raising our daughter in hiding, always looking over my shoulder, never knowing if today is the day they find us. That's not a life. That's a prison sentence. He turned to face her. The second option is war. I mobilize every resource I have. Attack the Young family directly. Eliminate the threat at its source. How many people would die? His silence was answer enough. And the third option, she pressed? Marriage. The word hung in the air between them. Adiz's heart stopped. What? If you become my wife, you're no longer a weakness to be exploited. You're the matriarch of my organization. Protected by every family under my control. Killing you wouldn't give them leverage, it would guarantee their complete annihilation. You want to marry me for strategic reasons. No. He crossed the room. Stopped directly in front of her. I want to marry you because I love you. The strategy is just a convenient excuse. Adiz forgot how to breathe. In all the months she had known him, treating his wounds, falling for his unexpected gentleness, grieving his death, she had never heard those words from his lips. She had seen it in his eyes, felt it in his touch. But Kwon Moo-hyuk did not say things like that. Until now. You love me, she repeated slowly. I've loved you since the night you refused to let me die. His gray eyes burned with intensity. I was bleeding out in that warehouse. My own men had betrayed me. I had accepted that it was over. And then this woman appeared, this fierce, stubborn, beautiful woman who looked at me like I was worth saving. You were my patient. It was my job too. It wasn't your job to read to me when I couldn't sleep. It wasn't your job to argue with me about Nigerian politics or teach me Igbo curse words or laugh at my terrible jokes. His voice dropped. It wasn't your job to make me feel human again, Adiz. You did that because you wanted to. Because you saw something in me worth seeing. She felt tears burning behind her eyes. And then you sent me away. Because I was terrified of how much I needed you. He reached out. Let his fingers brush her cheek, catching a tear that had escaped despite her best efforts. I told myself it was protection. Strategy. But the truth is I ran. From you. From what you made me feel. From the possibility that I could have something real. And now I'm done running. He knelt before her, this powerful, dangerous man, on his knees for the second time in as many days. Marry me, Adiz Nwachukwu. Not because it's strategic. Not because it protects you. Marry me because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. The baby kicked hard as if adding her opinion to the moment. Adiz laughed through her tears. She approves. And you? She looked at him. Really looked. At the scars and the tattoos and the violence written into his very existence. At the softness he showed only to her. At the man who had faked his death to protect an empire but wept when he felt his daughter move. I'm not going to make this easy for you, she said. You don't get to propose and have everything be perfect. We have history, Moo-hyuk. Painful history. Trust that was broken. I know. I need time. To see if your words match your actions. To see if you can be the man our daughter deserves. I understand. But. She reached down and took his face in her hands. Forced him to meet her eyes. I'm not saying no. I'm saying prove it. Court me properly. Show me who you are when you're not running or hiding or planning your own death. And maybe, we can build something real. The hope that blazed across his features was almost painful to witness. I will prove it, he said. Every day. Every moment. Until you have no doubts left. Big promises from a man who rose from the dead. I've done impossible things before. He turned his head and pressed a kiss to her palm. This is the one I actually want to do. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange bubble of danger and domesticity. Moo-hyuk moved his entire operation to the Gangnam penthouse. Meetings happened in the living room while Adiz read Nigerian novels in the bedroom. Phone calls in rapid Korean echoed through the halls at all hours. Men with hard faces and harder weapons came and went. But somehow, in the middle of all of it, he found time for her. He brought her Nigerian food from the best restaurant in 81. Jollof rice and suya and puff that made Auntie Chidinma cry with homesickness. He learned to pronounce Igbo words correctly after she mocked his accent mercilessly. He sat with her through doctor's appointments, holding her hand while ultrasound images revealed the growing life inside her. Their daughter was healthy. Perfect. Due in 6 weeks. And Adiz was falling in love with him all over again. She tried to resist it. Tried to remember the grief and the anger and the months of believing he was dead. But watching him lean forward during ultrasounds, gray eyes fixed on the screen with wonder. Watching him argue with Auntie Chidinma about proper Nigerian naming traditions. Watching him fall asleep beside her on the sofa, finally allowing himself rest because she was there. Her resistance crumbled a little more each day. You're softening, Auntie Chidinma observed during one of their private conversations. I can see it in your face. I'm not softening. I'm reconsidering. Same thing. The older woman smiled knowingly. He loves you, child. Even these old eyes can see that. The question is whether you're brave enough to love him back. Being with him is dangerous. Our daughter will grow up in this world. Your mother had the same fears about your father. And yet, when you were born, she told me she had never been more certain of anything in her life. Auntie Chidinma took her hands. Love is always dangerous, Adiz. The only question is whether the person is worth the risk. That night, Adiz found Moo-hyuk in the garden courtyard he'd had constructed on the penthouse terrace. Korean stone lanterns. A small koi pond. A recreation of the garden from his family estate. He was sitting on a bench, staring at the water. She lowered herself beside him without speaking. My mother used to tell me that our ancestors live in the water, he said quietly. That the koi carry their spirits. That if I watched carefully enough, I might see her face reflected back. Do you believe that? I used to think it was superstition. Stories for children. He was quiet for a moment. But then I died and came back to life. Now I believe anything is possible. Adiz leaned her head against his shoulder. His arm came around her immediately, pulling her close. I've been thinking about names, she said. For the baby? Yes. In Igbo tradition, names carry meaning. Power. They shape who a person becomes. Korean tradition is similar. His hand found her belly, cradling the swell gently. What names are you considering? I thought, if you agreed, we could honor both our cultures. A Korean given name. A Nigerian middle name. Both with meaning. Tell me. For the Korean name I was thinking Haon. It means graceful kindness. Something I want her to carry even growing up in your world. She paused. And for her Nigerian name? Chisholm. It means, God is with me. My mother's name was Kaisamaga, and Chisholm was her nickname. I want our daughter to carry that legacy. Moo-hyuk was silent for so long that Adiz began to worry she had overstepped. Then she felt his shoulders shake. He was crying. Moo-hyuk. Haon Chisholm Kwan. His voice was thick with emotion. My daughter. Our daughter. She'll carry both our histories. Both our families. Is that okay? He turned to face her. Tears tracked down his sharp cheekbones. The most feared man in Seoul, weeping over a baby name in a rooftop garden. It's perfect, he whispered. She's perfect. You're perfect. I don't deserve any of this. You're right. You don't. Adiz smiled through her own tears. But you're getting it anyway. Try not to screw it up. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unexpected that she found herself laughing too. They sat there in the moonlight, two broken people holding on to each other, waiting for the storm that was still coming. But for that moment at least they were happy. The storm came 3 days later. Adiz was alone in the penthouse when it happened. Moo-hyuk had been called away to handle a crisis at one of his warehouses. Auntie Chidinma was asleep in her room. The guards were stationed at their usual posts. The gas came through the vents silently. She smelled something sweet and wrong. Tried to call out. Felt her knees buckle. The last thing she saw before consciousness faded was a woman's face. Beautiful. Cold. Smiling. Yoon Harin stood over her with triumph in her dark eyes. Poor little foreign girl, Harin said softly. Did you really think you could take what was promised to me? Darkness swallowed everything. Adiz woke in chains. Her wrists were bound above her head, attached to a hook in the ceiling. Her feet barely touched the ground. Her body screamed with pain and terror. The baby. Her hands flew to her belly, and she sobbed with relief when she felt movement. Still there. Still alive. For now. Finally awake. The voice came from the shadows. An old man emerged into the dim light. Silver hair. Cold eyes. The patient cruelty of someone who had survived 7 decades by being more ruthless than everyone around him. Young Daeho. You're carrying Kwon Moo-hyuk's child, he said. His heir. The future of his bloodline. Please. Her voice cracked. Please don't hurt my baby. I'll do anything. Anything. The old man smiled. Then tell me where Kwon is hiding his offshore accounts. The records of every family that owes him loyalty. The names of his informants in the police and government. I don't know any of that. I was just his nurse, A slap cracked across her face. Stars exploded behind her eyes. Don't lie to me. Daeho's voice never rose. You've been living with him for weeks. Sharing his bed. You expect me to believe he told you nothing? He protects me from that world. He doesn't want me involved in. Another slap. Harder this time. Then you have no value except as bait. The old man turned away. We'll see how quickly Kwon comes when he learns we have you. And when he does. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Adiz hung from her chains and prayed to every ancestor who might be listening. Moo-hyuk got the message 20 minutes later. He was in the middle of interrogating a captured young operative when his phone buzzed. A video. He opened it expecting battlefield updates. Instead he saw Adiz. Chained. Terrified. Heavily pregnant. Young Daeho's voice narrated over the footage. Come to the Incheon warehouse complex within 2 hours. Come alone. Bring the account information and the loyalty records. Or watch your woman and your child die on camera. The video ended. Moo-hyuk stood frozen for 3 eternal seconds. Then the phone shattered in his grip, crushed by pure rage. Sir. Seo Jae-won appeared at his side, alarmed by the violence radiating from his boss. What happened? They have her. His voice was a snarl, barely human. The Young family has Adiz. Impossible. The penthouse security. Failed. He grabbed Jae-won's collar, lifting the man off his feet. Someone got through. Someone betrayed us again. Find out who or I will burn this entire organization to the ground. Sir, please, what are you going to do? Moo-hyuk released him. Straightened his jacket. His expression went from volcanic rage to terrifying calm in the span of a heartbeat. I'm going to get my family back, he said. And then I'm going to kill everyone who touched them. The message said come alone. I know what it said. It's a trap. They'll kill you the moment you walk in. They can try. Moo-hyuk pulled out a second phone. Started making calls. Mobilize everyone. Every soldier, every ally, every favor I'm owed. I want the Incheon complex surrounded within 90 minutes. That's over 100 men. Then we'll need 200. His gray eyes were glacial. Young Daeho wants a war? I'll give him an apocalypse. The warehouse complex sat on the Incheon waterfront, a maze of shipping containers and abandoned buildings. Young Daeho had chosen it deliberately, difficult to approach, easy to defend, impossible to escape if things went wrong. He expected Kwon Moo-hyuk to come alone. He expected desperation to make the younger man stupid. He was half right. Moo-hyuk walked through the main entrance at exactly 2 hours as demanded. No visible weapons. No visible backup. Just a tall man in a black suit, phoenix tattoo peeking above his collar, death written in every line of his body. You came, Daeho said from the elevated platform where he stood. Adiz hung from her chains beside him, barely conscious. Alone as instructed. Perhaps you do love this woman after all. Let her go. Moo-hyuk's voice echoed through the warehouse. This is between you and me. It was between us. Until you faked your death and made fools of everyone. The old man gestured and guards moved to surround Moo-hyuk. 30 of them. Heavily armed. Did you bring what I asked for? The account information. The loyalty records. Everything you wanted. Moo-hyuk held up a flash drive. Let Adiz go and it's yours. And how do I know this isn't more of your deception? You don't. But you know that I would do anything to protect her. That's why you took her. That's why this works. His jaw tightened. Let her go, Daeho. Please. The word seemed to genuinely surprise the old man. Please? The ghost of Gangnam says please? Daeho laughed. Love has made you weak, Kwon. Your father would be ashamed. My father was a monster who destroyed everyone he touched. I'm grateful every day that I'm nothing like him. You're exactly like him. You just haven't accepted it yet. Daeho nodded to his guards. Take the drive. Then kill them both. The guards moved forward. And then the walls exploded. Moo-hyuk's army didn't surround the complex. They infiltrated it. 200 men, moving through shipping containers and access tunnels, waiting for the signal. When the first guard reached for the flash drive, COJ-1 triggered the breach. Chaos erupted. Gunfire tore through the warehouse. Guards fell. Explosions rocked the building. Moo-hyuk moved through the carnage like a force of nature, cutting down anyone between him and the platform where Adiz hung. Daeho saw him coming. The old man pulled a knife, pressed it to Adiz's throat. Stop, he screamed. Stop or I'll. Moo-hyuk didn't stop. He raised his gun and fired. The bullet took Daeho in the shoulder, spinning him away from Adiz. The knife clattered to the ground. Moo-hyuk was on the platform in seconds, catching the old man by the throat. You threatened my family, he said quietly. You touched the mother of my child. Did you really think I would let you live? Your father would have negotiated. I told you. Moo-hyuk's grip tightened. I'm nothing like my father. He snapped Daeho's neck with a single twist. The patriarch of the Young family crumpled to the ground, lifeless. And then Moo-hyuk was at Adiz's side, cutting her chains, catching her as she fell. I've got you. His voice broke. I've got you, I'm here, you're safe. The baby. She could barely speak. Is the baby? We need a doctor. J1. He was already carrying her toward the exit. Get the car. Get the doctor. Now. The battle raged around them, but Moo-hyuk saw none of it. His entire world had narrowed to the woman in his arms and the child she carried. His family. His everything. Nothing else mattered. Haun Chisholm Kwon was born 3 weeks early. The stress of the kidnapping had triggered labor. Adiz spent 14 hours fighting to bring her daughter into the world while Moo-hyuk paced the hallway outside, driven half-mad with fear. Auntie Chidinma stayed by her side through it all, holding her hand, whispering prayers in Igbo, reminding her of the strength she carried in her blood. And then at 3 a.m, a cry filled the delivery room. Small. Fierce. Alive. The doctor placed the baby on Adiz's chest and the world stopped. She was perfect. Tiny and wrinkled and screaming with the fury of someone who had decided to survive against all odds. Dark hair. Dark gray eyes that would lighten or darken with time. Skin the color of warm honey, a perfect blend of her parents. Hello, Haun, Adiz whispered. Welcome to the world, my darling. We've been waiting for you. The door opened. Moo-hyuk stepped through, and his expression when he saw his daughter. Adiz would remember it for the rest of her life. Complete devastation. Absolute love. The most powerful man in Seoul, brought to his knees by a 7-pound infant. He crossed the room in 3 steps. Knelt beside the bed. Stared at the baby with tears streaming down his face. She's so small, he breathed. She's strong. Adiz adjusted the baby so he could see her better. Look at her eyes. They're yours. And her spirit is yours. He reached out one trembling hand. Let his finger brush against Haun's tiny fist. She's perfect. How is she so perfect? Because she's ours. He looked up at Adiz then. This man who had faked his death, fought a war, killed to protect them. This man who had broken her heart and put it back together piece by piece. Marry me, he said. You already asked. I'm asking again. Right now. In this moment. His voice shook. Marry me, Adiz. Be my wife. Let me be Haun's father in every way. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you. She looked at their daughter. At this tiny life they had created together against all odds. At the future stretching before them, complicated and dangerous and beautiful. Yes, she said. His entire body sagged with relief. Yes. Yes, Kwon Moo-hyuk. I'll marry you. She smiled through her tears. But if you ever fake your death again, I will kill you myself. He laughed. Actually laughed, bright and joyful and free. Then he leaned in and kissed her, soft and tender, with their daughter cradled between them. The wedding took place 1 month later. It was the social event of the decade, the merger of Korean underworld royalty with Nigerian diaspora elegance. The venue was the restored garden courtyard of Moo-hyuk's family estate, rebuilt from the ashes of the Young War. Adiz wore a custom gown that blended Korean hanbok silhouettes with Nigerian lace and beadwork. Her hair was wrapped in a traditional geli, and her mother's gold necklace rested against her collarbone. Moo-hyuk wore a black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. His phoenix tattoo was visible above his collar, and his eyes never left his bride. Auntie Chidinma presided over the Nigerian portions of the ceremony, pouring libations to the ancestors, invoking blessings in Igbo that made the Korean guests lean forward with curiosity. A traditional Korean officiant handled the rest, binding them with silk cords and shared cups of sake. And Haun, held by Seo-jae-won in the front row, slept through the entire thing. When it was time for vows, Moo-hyuk spoke first. "I was dead before I met you," he said. "Not physically, though that came later, but here." He placed a hand over his heart. "I had power, wealth, an empire. And none of it mattered because I had no one to share it with. No one who saw me as anything other than a weapon or a threat." His voice roughened. "You changed that. You looked at me bleeding on a warehouse floor and decided I was worth saving. Not because of what I could give you but because of who I might become. You gave me something I never thought I'd have, hope." He took her hands. "I vow to protect you and our daughter with every breath in my body. I vow to be the husband you deserve and the father Haun needs. I vow to choose you, over my pride, my empire, my own life if necessary, every single day." He paused. "And I vow to never fake my death again." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Adiz wiped her eyes and smiled. "My turn," she said. "When I came to Korea I was running from grief. From loss. From a life that had taken everything I loved. I thought if I kept my head down and worked hard I could disappear into safety." She shook her head. "And then I met you. This impossible man with too many scars and too many secrets. You should have been everything I was running from. Instead, you became everything I was running toward." Her voice steadied. "I vow to love you, not despite who you are but because of it. I vow to stand beside you in the difficult moments and celebrate with you in the joyful ones. I vow to raise our daughter with strength, compassion, and the knowledge that she comes from two proud cultures that refuse to break." She squeezed his hands. "And I vow to always tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. Because that's what love is, honesty even when it's hard." The officiant pronounced them married. Moo-hyuk kissed his wife. The crowd erupted in cheers. And somewhere in the front row Haun Chisum-kwan opened her gray eyes and watched her parents begin their forever. 1 year later. The nursery was painted in soft yellows and greens, colors that Haun had stared at with fascination since she was old enough to focus. Adiz stood in the doorway watching her husband rock their daughter to sleep. Kwon Moo-hyuk, the ghost of Gangnam, terror of Seoul's underworld, the man whose name made grown criminals tremble, was singing a Nigerian lullaby in his terrible accent while a 1-year-old drooled on his shoulder. "You're flat," Adiz said. "I'm emotional. It adds character." She crossed the room and leaned against him, looking down at their sleeping daughter. Haun had grown so much in a year. Her gray eyes had deepened to match her father's exactly. Her curly hair was a gift from her mother. Her stubborn spirit was unmistakably both. "She's going to be trouble," Adiz murmured. "She's going to be magnificent." "Same thing." Moo-hyuk pressed a kiss to his wife's forehead. "I love you, Adiz Kwan. I love you too." She smiled against his shoulder. "Even though you snore." "I do not snore." "You absolutely snore. Haun could hear you from 3 rooms away." "Lies. Slander. Truth. I recorded it." He turned to look at her with mock offense. "You didn't." "I did. It's saved for future blackmail purposes." The most feared Mafia boss in Seoul stared at his wife with complete adoration. "I married a monster," he said. "You married someone who could handle you." She stretched up and kissed him softly. "Now put our daughter to bed and come with me. I have plans." "What kind of plans?" "The kind that might give Haun a sibling." His eyes darkened with interest. Haun was gently, carefully placed in her crib. The nursery door closed behind them. And the Kwan family continued to grow. The funeral had been a lie. The death had been a deception. But the love? That was the most real thing either of them had ever known. And it would last forever.